With a little home improvement, Craig Conroy has been able to tweak the blue line, but is it going to be enough to be better than, let's say, last year's San Jose Sharks?
You're Locked On Flames, your daily podcast on the Calgary Flames. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Locked On Flames. As always, I am your host, Jess Belmosto, and thank you so much for joining me today on this July 3rd afternoon, if you are listening to this when it goes live. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Well, today, I'm sure you guessed it by the introduction, we are going to be talking about the Flames defense and how it went from, oh my God, this is like the Flames are going to be lucky if they win 25 games to maybe we can shoot for 35, maybe more. But there have been some improvements made since the end of the season, and it's good to acknowledge and kind of factor this in to our expectations as we travel through the off season here on Locked On Flames. You can find the show wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. I am here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week, your team every day. And let's dive right into this. So post-trade deadline Flames hockey was a little scary. It was a little much. It going 2-13 is not exactly enjoyable hockey. In fact, it was unbearable at times, and Flames fans kind of knew that. When you trade away a vast majority of your talented players, you are not going to be able to stay at the level or stay afloat like you were before. So the life jackets came off, and they were treading water with like a solid rock tied around their ankle. It was not a fun time. And looking back, I honestly had to Google who was on the Flames pairings at this point, because I feel like there were so many blue liners brought in, and this also feels like it was 6 years ago at this point. But obviously the Flames had Weegar and Anderson, the two veteran blue liners that had been with the Flames and trying to hold it together. And then, of course, you had Kylington, who was coming back and still getting in the swing of things. He returned in February. So, I mean, like those are 3 of your 6, right? And then you had Joel Hanley and Miramonov, who came over in the Noah Hanifin trade, and Braden Pahal, who they claimed from on waivers earlier in the season. I think one of the things here for the Flames is that, like, you had to work with what you were able to work with. They were not trading for anyone that was going to make an impact on the blue line. They were looking to just get through the last portion of the season and recalibrate in the off season. But it's tough. You are not going to be able to replicate what you had with, Tanev, Hanifin, Weegar, and Anderson, and Zadorov. Like, Zadorov got traded too. I mean, like, you had to finagle a defensive core that went from one of the better ones in the league to who is this man? And that's not like shade or anything at like the players they brought in, but you were so used to what you were seeing night after night after night, and you're bringing in new guys. And they tried to integrate younger players too. Like they tried Soliev a couple times, and it didn't work for whatever reason. It wasn't sticking. And that's going to happen. I mean, this is like all part of development as well. Like players aren't just going to come in and like immediately stick. Some might not. Not everyone can be a Martin Pospisil or a Connor Zary. So when you end the season by losing 13 out of 15, people are going to be concerned for what lies ahead. And it was bad. It was bad. And like, it was kind of like a joking matter because it was like, how could things actually be this bad? And people and fans were kind of prepared to go into this season being as bad as, let's say, the San Jose Sharks. And I think that that's a fair assessment for where things were in April. You did not have really anything that was put confidence in anyone. There, like Jordan Osterley ended up signing elsewhere. The Flames and Wranglers didn't re-sign him. You weren't going to trade for, like I don't even know who are some of the big defensemen. Like you weren't going to re-sign Nikita Zadorov. You weren't going to be able to go get, I don't even remember who some of the defensemen on the market were, but you get my point. You went out and traded for Jake. Did you trade? No, you signed Jake Bean. Sorry. It has all blended together at this point. But you made some changes and stuff happened. I think confidence with the back end has increased, and that's really what you want right now. That is absolutely what you want and what you were looking for as we head into this season. But coming up next, we're going to talk about those changes and really what the expectations are, what Flames fans can look forward to, and more coming up next year on Locked On Flames. But before we do that, I do want to take a quick second here and talk about an app that I will be using all summer long to go to sporting events, concerts, and other events in my area, and that would be Game Time. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch, with killer last minute deals, all-in prices, view from your seats, and their lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I am super excited to get my butt back down to Boston to watch a Red Sox game. Thinking of going to one a little bit later in the season. So maybe they are in the playoff run, and I can snag some really good tickets at a great price, a great deal on Game Time. I love that you can save up to 60% by buying last minute tickets. If you're a spontaneous person and you can't decide if you want to go to your favorite concert, sporting events, comedy, or theater, Game Time is the app for you. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL to save $20 on your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me today on Locked On Flames. You can follow me on Twitter at JustBelmosto. I think with this Flames defense, you're getting a new group. It's going to take time to find chemistry. It's going to take time to build it. Not everything is going to go great. But right now, the pairings kind of look like Uyghur and Miramonov, Kevin Ball and Anderson, Bean and Pahal. I mean, that's a lot better. I say a lot better, but I feel like anything was going to be an upgrade over what you had. And I've definitely come around on Kevin Ball. I think that he is, better than I initially gave him credit for. And maybe I was just bitter because of the Jacob Markstrom trade. I don't enjoy seeing good players being traded, but this is part of the plan. And you have to trust the process here. But part of me is wondering if they are playing Ball up in the lineup to, get him acclimated. I know that they do that a lot. Just to sometimes when you play with a better player, you bring out better qualities and you just play better. I don't know how it happens. It's a phenomenon, but I think that, this top 4 isn't fantastic, but it's where you need to be. Like Weegar, Anderson, Tanev, and Hannafin were like the perfect 1 through 4. I loved it. I thought they were fantastic. However, you couldn't keep it together. So you had to make changes. And I think there will be some obvious like substitutions throughout the season, especially if Jeremy Poirier is healthy and they feel like he's able to make that jump. Solovyev again, maybe Kuznetsov. I mean, I almost said Adam Klapka, but because he's so big, but he's a forward. But the door also isn't fully shut on Oliver Kylington. And I guess the rumor being from Frank Saravalli, so take that as you will, is that he wanted more term and money than they gave Jake Bean. Jake Bean is not horrible, but his payday came and contract more than likely came about because who his father is, and that's the nature of the game. I don't think that Oliver Kylington or I don't think either party should be putting all their eggs in one basket with a long-term contract. You get the July 1st overpay regardless of who you sign. Look at what Brad Treliving did with Chris Tanev. He didn't overpay him. He signed him for way too long. Elias Lindholm got a full no trade clause or no movement clause through the first 5 years of his 7-year contract. Like, silly things like that are just handed out like candy. And I guess, so be it. But that is an entirely different conversation. I hope that Kylington comes back. I absolutely love Shilly, and I think that he has been a big inspiration for a lot of people and just has a really great story. And you don't root against a guy like that. And it would be interesting to see, would the 7th defenseman be Bean or would it be Pahal? I'm apt to believe it would be Bean, just because I think Pahal has had more NHL time, and at least with the Flames, it could absolutely rotate between the two of them. They're not paying Kevin Ball to not play, so that's that. It feels better, of course. I think, like I mentioned before, just about anything other than what they ended the season with was going to be an upgrade. They still need to, of course, translate this to on-ice performance, but I personally have a little bit more confidence in the team now, and a lot more, I feel more comfortable putting Dustin Wolf out there in front of these guys or behind these guys rather than I did before. I felt like they were setting him up to fail if they just kept that group. And they didn't. And that's obviously a very good decision and smart decision by the organization there, because not only do you need people to stop goals, your team needs to have confidence in you, and you're laying the groundwork for like a potential like generational goaltender here. And it should be like, I don't want to say an easy path to success, because that's not what I'm trying to say. I guess, like, you need to set him up so he can hit home runs, like just throwing one right down the middle to him. And upgrading your defense at this point with these players is a good move. And I think, with Brewsterwich eventually coming in, Parrott coming in, and some of the guys that are currently with the Wranglers potentially coming in, like, that's better than where things left off. And I just, this team, we know that this team is not going to be a wild card team. Like, we know that. But you still want to watch, like, not completely unbearable hockey. And I think, like, with the Flames, they know that they have to take their medicine right now. And I think, like, Edmonton and Toronto, how, like, their defensive cores have just always been an issue and were an issue through the playoffs. And, like, it just felt like something they were never going to fix and never get together. Granted, you aren't going to fix your defense by paying Darnell Nurse all that money, but it takes time to find that perfect equation and for the stars to align the way you need them to start taking those steps, and to, like, not even start taking those steps, but for it to be noticeable. Because if you can't stop and your defense out there looks like Jacob Trouba, then it's an issue. And I think the Flames are going to run into that in some facet, in some capacity, but, like, they've got this. This is the first step. These are continuations of the first steps that they have been needing to take. And coming up next, we're going to talk about are we more confident with the team, and what Craig Conroy has assembled thus far. And we will be back to talk about that right after this. Thanks, everyone, for hanging out with me and making Locked On Flames part of your day. Whether you're listening in the car, in the shower, at your desk at work, or in the grocery store, wherever you may be, I greatly appreciate it and hope that you stick around through the off season and then some. This time of year is so confusing because I still keep forgetting that, like, Steven Stamkos is a Nashville Predator. Same with Brady Shea. Like, there's been so much movement this year that I'm like, where is everyone? Like, Tarasenko just signed in Detroit, and players, like, they're going to new homes. They're going to new homes, and they are going to need a little bit to adjust and adapt and build chemistry with their teammates and get situated, especially in a place like Calgary, where you are playing and living in the literal Rocky Mountains, and the altitude is potentially an issue. But what leads me to believe that this is going to be okay and doable is basically what we're seeing on paper. Obviously, it's not what you want. You would love to have an Adam Fox on this. You would love to have Roman Josi. You would love to have Cale Makar, Charlie McAvoy. Like, there's obviously a lot of players you would love to make up your defensive group, but this isn't video games. This is real life, unfortunately. And you have to work with what you got. You work with the ingredients and materials you have, and you have to start somewhere. And there's no instruction booklet on this. There's no Lego instruction picture guide to help you put any of this together. And that can be kind of terrifying, because there may be moments where, you know, you feel like the defense or any part of this lineup really has made progress, and then like one move changes everything. And it's not necessarily a move that you thought would be like overly impactful. And it can be a little nerve-wracking, because you're going to take steps back, and it's more work and it's more time. So right now, I feel like this looks good on paper. And that's just like where we're at. I have more faith in this group than I did 3 months, not even 3 months ago, like 2 weeks ago, on Sunday. I think that there's obviously room to grow, and like this is going to be a test of how long are the leashes for those young guys looking to make the jump. Are you going to see a Jeremy Poirier this year if he's healthy, comes back? He came back from a pretty significant hockey injury last year. Is he ready to play a few games with the Flames? And what does it look like if Oliver Kylington doesn't come back? You need a puck-moving defenseman. And I think you need more than Uyghur as well on that front. So I don't know who's going to block the shots like Chris Tanev. I don't know who's going to hold the penalty kill down like Chris Tanev and Oliver Kylington have. You need Rasmus Andersson to find his shot again. You need to have him find the confidence in his game. Otherwise, it's going to be a very long 82-game season. And I hope I'm wrong. And I hope that everything works out and is sustainable. But I don't see that being the case. I don't see this being the defensive group that is playing together 95% of the season. I think you are naturally going to see people get hurt. And you call up your guys from the AHL. And you just hope that something sticks eventually, somewhere, somehow. I want to see some of the prospects rotate in if they feel like that is an option. We know what's going to happen up front. Like we know that that's going to happen with the forward group. But what about the Flames' defensive prospect pool is so scarce. And like I don't mean like, well, they just drafted this guy, they just treated this guy, like blah, blah, blah. The players that were drafted a few years ago should be ready to make the jump. And I feel like that's not the case. So they had to do stuff in free agency to get blue liners and defensemen. So we're just going to have to wait and see. I do have more faith. Who's going to be the seventh defenseman if Kylington comes back? And is that at all an opportunity and like a realistic thing? Because the longer he goes unsigned, the more likely I am leaning into them, the Flames and Kylington's camp coming to an agreement. So hopefully that's what happens, because big Kylington fan over here. So, I mean, he's really like your only defensive prospect in a few years that's taken that jump. Took Rasmus Andersson a little bit of time to do that too. One of my favorite quotes, or when Ryan Huska was hired, was him talking about how lazy and out of shape Rasmus Andersson was in. So, we're going to hear those stories eventually someday about some of these kids that are playing right now. And the Flames just really need to invest their time in player development. If the defense isn't immaculate this year, okay, that's great. But like, what are you doing to better this next generation of Flames draft picks? Because sometimes it's felt very bleak, but this draft did go pretty well for them. So fingers crossed that we see some sort of improvement on the back end, because like I said, losing 13 out of 15, that is very tough. That's not something you're proud of, and you desperately need to see an improvement there. So we're counting down the days until the puck drops for Flames, and we'll get you through the summer with daily episodes through the month of July here on Locked On Flames. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. You never miss a show. And of course, you can just follow me on Twitter at Jess Belmosto. And like I said, we're here for you Monday through Friday, 5 days a week. Your Calgary Flames every day. And thank you so much for making Locked On Flames part of your day. Hope you have a wonderful evening, and stay safe, stay warm, stay dry, stay hydrated, put on some sunscreen, and be kind.